welcome to CDW Tech Talks. This is the pod where we dig into technology trends and practical insights shaping how organizations use tech to solve real business problems. My name is Brian Matthews, and I am your friendly neighborhood host for today's pod. I am the head of services strategy and development at CDW Canada for cloud, modern workspace, and AI. Each episode, we break down what's happening in the world of business and IT and show you how to put into practice all of these great tips into your organization right away. So stick around until the end of the pod, where Ashley will be sharing one of her simple, actionable tech tips of the week. So, Ashley, welcome back to the pod. Glad to have you for your second episode of this season, and can't wait to bring you back in the future. But for anyone that hasn't seen your original episode or had the pleasure to meet you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, well, thank you for having me back. Taking over Copilot and agents and everything, extending our AI skills like we covered in the first podcast. My name is Ashley Otto. I work with Brian directly, and I focus on services development for CDW Canada and covering obviously a lot of the AI space and just bringing everything together.
Awesome. So kind of setting the stage here, Ashley and I have been on a bit of an internal roadshow at CDW, talking to different teams, different organizations. And over the last, call it 45 days, we've probably trained about 80% of the CDW Canada coworker population, which is probably, over 1,000 people total of our 12 to 1,300 population. And one of the things that we've been talking about is this idea of how to train your agents. And at CDW, we're a big Microsoft shop. We're a big Copilot shop. Ashley and I are both power users of Copilot. And beyond the trainings and the technical trainings that we do and the promptathons and the hackathons and all the fun stuff, part of the most valuable training and adoption that we see within our organization is just storytelling and sharing, what I'm doing or what Ashley's doing or what she heard that a different team is doing. So we thought, what a great way to spend a few minutes on the pod in terms of talking through this. So, today it's all about, leveraging the Copilot from 365 agents. Obviously, these techniques, these tips, these tricks could work on a agent that is built and designed in-house by your organization. But for the purpose of this conversation, we'll be talking a lot about some of the Microsoft published agents that are pushed out to the agent store. So let's dive in, Ashley. What an awesome way to spend an afternoon. So let's dig in. So let's do what Simon Sinek always tells us to do and start with why. Ashley, why can't Copilot and Copilot agents just do everything that we need it to do out of the box? Like, why would I need to train it? Why does it need anything from me? I thought this was like a superhuman, intelligent, entity. I don't want to do any extra work. So tell me why. Why do we need to train our agents?
Well, I mean, Copilot is smart, and agents are smart. It can take everything that you've put into it, right? So we like to mirror it as it's a brilliant new hire, and they don't need like more IQ, but they do need more information, better access, better standards, better information. So why we need to train it is so it can give us back what we need. So think of a Copilot as the UI, similar to Teams is the UI to SharePoint. It is only as good as what we have sitting behind it. So making sure we're training not only the inputs, like our people, but also the environment. So the data that it's taking from, the permissions, the hygiene, the security piece. So kind of bringing everything together. But yeah, I mean, it is only as good as what you have on the background. And I feel like we all saw that with Teams when we all joined Teams during COVID. And so we really need to make sure that what we're putting into it is good and clean.
Yeah, I really like the way that you think about that in terms of mirroring how we would work and engage with a new team member, right? And we could have the, smartest, man or woman join our team with the greatest resume. They're not going to be successful within an organization unless you give them clear instructions and clear guidance and clearly define their role and set expectations about, what types of tasks or activities or initiatives you want it to take on. So I kind of like that because I think it's normal for us as coworkers to want to help and offer support and give back to new team members and share our expertise and experience, so we can just keep that same mindset with some of these agents and, to your point, drive more valuable information, more valuable answers, more valuable activities. So all right, we have satisfied Simon Sinek. We've started with why. Let's move into some of the basics here. So maybe if we jump into the basics of some of the agents available on the agent store, maybe Ash, talk to me about two or three of the agents that you're using, how you think about them, some of the tasks that they can help support you with, and potentially some of the listeners.
So I think I said this on the first podcast, but I basically live in Researcher. That is my go-to assistant during the day. So with Researcher, it syncs in all of your sources. So if you have a whole bunch of references, basically anything that's messy knowledge, and you need to bring it all into one report, Researcher can do that for you. And explain and help you understand what might be true, what might not be true, and cite it. So for me, I can take all that data that we have on our back end from SharePoint or emails or Teams, whatever it may be, and build out reports, build out go-to-market strategies, bring in outside sources, and it will put everything down for me. So I don't have to read through everything individually and cite it. Or even help me curate the documentation into a specific template. For instance, I've built out a prompt that's probably about 100 plus characters long, and when I source everything to that prompt in that Researcher agent, it built me out my whole go-to-market. So it built out the structure of the one pager, the battle card, the first call deck, and the sales enablement deck, that I can just basically copy and paste in. And future me will build an agent to help do that piece as well. And then I don't use it enough, but Analyst is your thinks in numbers. It helps you structure all of your data and helps you prove what's actually happening. So you can use those two together, right? So Researcher helps you bring all that information, and Analyst helps you prove that that information is true. And then from there, I always use Prompt Coach, because sometimes you have an idea in your head and you're not sure how to articulate that to Copilot so you get good results. So Prompt Coach helps me build that out, and I always tell it to template it so I can then share with others, and it's something that I use consistently. So I think those would be like my three that are my go-to, and that I share generally with everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Researcher, I think, is the agent that I hear the most about from the audiences that we engage with. I kind of think of it as an individual with a photographic memory, a PhD in everything, who loves to share their knowledge, and I can find a lot of value in a teammate like that. Analyst, in the movies when you see people walking around with the numbers and all the trend lines, popping above their head, that's kind of how I think about analyst. It's that smart friend that can see insights and trends and data that others miss out on. Prompt Coach, I'd like to dig in there a little bit too, because I actually think Prompt Coach is maybe one of the easiest places to start for a lot of people, because you and I have talked about this, but I think prompt engineering is the wrong term. I think it makes it sound like it's a really complicated thing that you need to go to university for 4 years to get a degree in to be a prompt engineer. And when we think about prompting, it's really just speaking, right? And in the same way I would speak to you as a colleague about a task or instructions or support or guidance that I need, we can speak in that same plain language. And once we do that, if we put our plain language prompt into Prompt Coach, it's going to do the work for us. It's going to take, maybe a half thought out idea or a partially thought out idea. It's going to ask a couple of questions to get all the, goals and contacts and sources and expectations that I have. And it's going to build out, to your point, a 100 line, a 200 line prompt that I can copy and paste and get a much better answer for. So I think that's a great way for people to dig in and start to build more reflexive AI usage. last thing I would say, Ashley, talk to me about some of the easy ways or some of the basics in terms of training these agents, right? So we've got our audience excited, right? They've gone in and they've installed researcher or analyst within their Copilot for 365 environment. We've told them to go use Prompt Coach, but what else can we do to make our agents more effective at supporting us?
Yeah, so I mean, we need to train Copilot. So the more you use it, the more it learns from you and what you have access to. And then repeatable use cases, right? So if you are generating the same prompt each time, but then you're tweaking the response to your answers on the back end, it will learn from that. Additionally, I tell everybody to go in and adjust the personalization of your Copilot, right? So you can go into Outlook and give a personalization to Copilot through your Outlook and how it responds. And then you can also do that through the Copilot app. And I use Copilot to help me write that response. But now it's my Copilot when it's giving me responses is think like a product manager. This is what I'm looking for. This is how I do my job. This is how I want everything to be the outputs to be. And that will adjust over time as well. So I think I'm on my third version of this personalization. As my Copilot learns more, it starts giving me better responses and longer responses for that personalization. So the more you use it, the more it learns. And then too, as well, it's like when you're asking it back and forth, it's a conversation. So it's not give me this and then it gives it to you and then you walk away. No, keep on going back and forth. And I heard this from a coworker at an EBC last week. It's Copilot doesn't need you to be nice. It doesn't need a can you please help me with or thank you for doing this, because that actually confuses it in the long run and it won't give you proper responses. So those were just little things that I kind of do to help personalize it.
Yeah, I love that. I know in real time I've seen you, at Brian Matthews me in lots of documents and assign tasks to me, and I love that because I run a daily brief in Researcher every morning, and anything that you've tagged me in and mentioned me in, my daily brief the next day remembers and reminds me or congratulates me if I've already taken action on the task that you've, pushed over to me. So I think, at mentioning people is really important. Again, it starts to draw some of those connection lines to key stakeholders within your area of the business and who you work with. Any other kind of basic tips and tricks before we move on?
I would say start your day in the agent that you're using most of all, right? And then just try out everything else. So I mean, they recently launched notebooks in Copilot. There's been a few iterations of that. It's an amazing tool that I've started to use more and more, and then share with people. So I know our delivery team has a prompt library that people can go in and copy and paste. So sharing your knowledge is going to be the best way. And I always remind people that the prompt I run on my Copilot will yield a different answer from the exact same prompt on your Copilot, right? So see how that plays out for you, because if you are looking for a specific response and you don't work in that area, have someone else run it and see what it gets.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I used that kind of mindset last week where a leader asked me and you to come in to train their team on some use cases around agentic AI, and we built a prompt in Prompt Coach, but we built it in the voice of the leader of that team, and then I said, hey, please run this in your researcher agent because your researcher agent knows more about your business than mine does, and this will give us a more targeted and specific set of use cases for us to dig into in the training. So I love that. The other thing I would call out, and you and I have talked a lot about this, Copilot will make mistakes. AI will make mistakes. AI will hallucinate. It is not perfect. Nothing is. And in the same way that if a colleague makes a mistake and you notice it, just pull Copilot aside for a friendly little chat and constructive criticism and just say, hey, you know what, you got this wrong, and here's why you got it wrong, and here's the right answer. So we can, help course correct some of those wrong answers, misinformation, and hallucinations in real time. So All right, Ashley, I want to dig into notebooks a little bit more because you've been using that very effectively, and I just don't think enough people know enough about the notebooks feature. So just maybe dig a bit deeper there, and then maybe give an example of how you're using it within your workflow.
Yeah, so I mean, notebooks is like your AI workspace, right? So you can take everything. I like to think of it as a OneNote as well, or a loop, but you can create it for yourself or you can share it. And you are taking all of the resources or all the references that you need to access and put it into that notebook like you would a school binder essentially. But then it will give you a summary of everything. So I have some notebooks with 20 plus references in it, depending on the service that I'm building. It'll summarize it for me, and then I can talk to that notebook, and it will only look at the references that I've put into there. So it helps contain everything that you're looking at. But the fact that you can share it with other people, I mean, that's a great part about most Microsoft products. But also that it gives you a summary, and that summary updates every time you add something new in. So I think it's been pretty useful, especially in my role and anyone who's working in projects or sales, to have one kind of single source of truth that you're pulling in from SharePoint or the customer website or documentation from a technical site, all living in one space, and that you can continuously reference and not have to go and search for everything each and every time like you might have to with like a Copilot response.
Yeah, I had never put together what you had just said around notebook and think of this as like a binder at school, but I think that really packages it up nicely because,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're working on a strategic initiative, maybe you're working on a project, maybe you are responsible within the sales organization for a specific customer, and maybe you're turning on facilitator in your meetings, maybe you're doing some research and some meeting prep in researcher, you're doing different things, you plug in all those sources, and then you've contained the knowledge sources to a very finite, very specialized, and very curated set of documents for, in that case, the co-pilot to be able to kind of access and glean information and make decisions, or provide insight and guidance. So I just kind of love that. All right, Ashley, we are up against it. Time flies when you're having fun. Maybe I'll just pass it to you. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say like if Copilot responses or your out of the box agents, and even in chat is feeling a little bit off, it's it's probably not like a prompting problem or anything that you're probably doing. It's more foundational problems. So looking at how Copilot is built on everything, if the security defines what Copilot can see, the data itself defines how Copilot what Copilot knows and what it responds to you. And then the human training element really defines how Copilot thinks. So keeping all those three things in mind, it's not just Copilot, it's not just M365, but what you put into it, the data and the security will really be make or break of what you're going to get out of Copilot.
All right, I know that this session's been filled with tips and tricks, but do you have a closing tech tip of the week?
Just try and use it.
There we
Just
go.
try and just even say hi Copilot. Yeah, just try and use it and then share it with people.
Yep. Start a conversation, share what's working, what's not working, see what people bring back to you. It's great advice, great tech tip of the week. So, Ashley, as always, thank you for spending some time, and I hope you and our audience have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you.